My name is Jim Crabtree, and I became associated with the Zimmerman Automobile Driving Museum when Tom Finn came to me and said, the museum, this was 10 years ago or more, the museum is lagging. We want to get some interest increased in it. What can we do? And I said, well, come down here, walk around, look at the cars, and it's like, they're just sitting here. They're just static displays. Does anybody know anything about them? Yeah, we got some files. We got some people. They had no docent training program. People walked around and said, well, there's the black car, the blue car, the green car. They didn't really know that much about it. So I said, you know what? We need to put together a training program. So we worked and I put together a series of lectures in the shop area, in the repair area called Shop Talks. And I gave a whole series of presentations, talked about the cars, the development of the cars, and where they came from, what they were for, tracing the development of all kinds of things on the cars, from the headlights, how they went from candles, basically, with gas headlights, into bulb and reflector, into sealed beams, into modern quartz-type headlights, and how the wheels changed from wood to steel to all-metal disc-type wheels and whatnot. And it was well attended. It was a nice, long lecture series. And one of the thing I liked about it most is that I had people in the audience that were complete novices. They really didn't know much about the car. Said, oh, I really enjoyed that. Other people who were like me that probably could have given the lecture themselves came up afterwards and says, my God, Jim, I learned something from your lecture. You gave us a lot of information. And that's the thing about a museum that I think museums can be one of two things. It can either be a warehouse, oh, look at all my stuff, there it sits there, or a museum by definition really should be a school, a university. It should be teaching, learning, and research. And when people come in, they learn something while they were there, learn about the cars, the development of them, what makes one car different from the other. But a museum should also be doing their own research. And the ADM was just starting to get into some of that here with the files, studying their cars and whatnot. And now, unfortunately, a lot of that's not going to come to pass because we're having to close down. But teaching and learning, that's what a museum really is all about. This museum is totally unique than any other museum in the United States in the fact that for most part, no ropes. There are no velvet ropes around the cars, no do not touch sign. There's a few really valuable cars that have do not touch signs, but the fact that people could come in and touch the car, see it, look at it, become part of it, that allowed people to experience the cars. And again, there's that teaching and learning. Seeing a car in a glass case and do not touch signs, you're removed from it. It doesn't make any sense to you. But if you can climb in and say, this is the way a car felt in the 20s. How much legroom, how much headroom did they have? In the 40s or 50s, how much legroom or headroom? How wide was the door? What's it like getting in and out? That's when you really learn about cars. And of course, then here at the ADM, which made it just incredible, was their driving program. The fact that every weekend they would take out 3 or 4 cars and they parked them out front, and as part of the admission, they would take you right around the block. So instead of people saying, oh yeah, I went to that car museum and I saw, no, they came to the ADM here and they rode in. They came to the ADM and they experienced it. And this is something that the car hobby needs to do more. In the car hobby world, there's always a problem getting young people involved in any hobby, in anything. You got to get the kids involved. Well, if it's do not touch, stay away, only look at it, who's going to get interested in it? But here, children could come down to the ADM and they could touch cars and sit in them, respectfully, of course. You know, not to damage them, but respectfully sit in them, and they became engrossed in them. And that is what stimulates the thinking. That's what really makes you want to learn more. And I would give school tours here more than a few times, and the kids would come through, and of course their curriculum would be history and whatnot, and we would talk about the shape of cars, the style of cars, the engineering of the cars, how you start the cars. Some are crank starts, some have a button on the floor, button on the dash, some of them you turn the key. Later, the kids today only have a turn on the steering wheel or the push button on the dashboard. So learning the development of it, that stimulates thinking and go, why are things the way they are? Drive you back to the books, drive you to want to learn history and learn more. That's what it's really all about. Probably one of the best reasons that somebody would want one of these cars is because they're realistic. They are, again, none of these cars here were 100-point cars. None of these cars, for the most part, appeared on Pebble Beach. They're not perfect, untouchable cars. These cars here are real cars you can experience. For the most part, most all the cars that are going to go through the auctions were part of the driving program. They were demonstrated, they were used. They went, nah, we're not talking 100-mile tours, but we're talking they were around the block. So rather than saying, oh, for sale here, I have an XY19 whatever car, it was an ex-museum car. Oh yeah, ex-museum car. Oh God, it hasn't been run in years. It needs all kinds of work. Yeah, it's shiny, but man, it's the wake up on that is going to cost thousands. Many of these cars here come with a documented operational history. So you can say, okay, it's going to need something, because every time you buy a car, it's going to need a little bit of tinkering here and there, but these cars were operated recently. And so getting them even into a better shape today is not going to be that hard, not going to be as difficult for the vast majority of the cars. They're almost ready to go. Now, again, some people, everybody collects cars differently. Some people want the 100-point cars. Okay, that's not these cars. You want perfect. Okay, let's go elsewhere. But if you just want a good hobby car to enjoy, that's what these are. That's what these are. And the history of the cars, as we've seen going through the files of some of these cars, they came from hobbyists. They're donated to the museum, oftentimes by people who owned them. We were looking at the Hupmobile earlier. It was purchased by the person in 1972 who owned it, fixed it, loved it, drove it, enjoyed it. He died, and his widow donated it to the museum in 2011. So we have these long histories of not just, again, in a dusty museum, but a history of the car of somebody who loved it, who used it, and hopefully if it's been purchased at the auction, it will go to somebody else who will love it just as much and continue to use it and enjoy it for the car that it is. Yeah, I get kind of frustrated sometimes when people say, oh, it's perfect, don't touch it, oh, don't go near it. It's not a car anymore. It's art. It's gone to art. Yes, and some people like art, and some people like cars as are, oh, look, it's really swoopy and whatnot. But you know what? I think most real car people that really enjoy cars, want to experience a car. And there, of course, people say, oh, cars is art, art in motion. Yeah, how many of your art in motion cars really are in motion? Here we have cars at the driving museum. They are driven, and there's something different about looking at a car static display versus one going down the road. Same car is completely different. You just see it driving by slowly. It's a totally different car, totally different experience. And these are driving cars, these are driven cars, and it's what they're made to do. And to buy one, it could give you a lot of pleasure in your life. Stanley Zimmerman as the enthusiast. Yeah, well, he started off as a Packard guy. Loved his Packards. Bought one, bought two, bought three Packards. Then it's like, and he was a man of means, so he had the money to indulge his interest, would buy better Packards and buy more interesting Packards. And he bought this warehouse, bought the property to park his cars in, as anybody would, a bigger garage to hold more cars. And then he thought, you know what, it's all Packards. Packards are nice, but that weren't the only car that was made at that time. So he was enthusiastic enough to go out and say, I want to get a Durant. I want to get a Oldsmobile. I want to have a Plymouth. I want to have a Chevrolet or a Ford or Model A or whatnot. And so he expanded for his own interest. He was buying these cars, again, as an enthusiast, just because that's what he liked. And then it's like, well, what do I do with them now? I have all these cars. I walk around myself. I want to share them with somebody. So he opened it up as a museum and shared it. And he says, you know, I want people, again, to experience it. So I'm going to get them to drive it. And so that's when his original idea was to make this a driving museum, not just a parked velvet rope, don't touch it museum. And that made him very different as a collector transitioning into a museum type of person. It's real enthusiasm. Automobile Driving Museum, run by an enthusiast, promoted by an enthusiast, continue to use them enthusiastically. Yeah, continue to drive them, continue to upkeep them. museum car, purchased at auction, hasn't run a long time. These cars, it's an interesting aspect of a museum curator is to keep them running. Had a garage in the back. They had lifts. And they had mechanics, volunteer mechanics, who would come in and twist wrenches to keep them going. And sometimes they would say, oh, we want the 57 Ford on the drive this weekend. Let's take it out and use it. Oh, no, the power steering is bad or leaking on it. Okay, let's take one of the other ones and we'll have to fix the 57 Ford so that it's ready to go next weekend. And they would tinker and keep that going. What other museum worries about keeping them running? They don't care. They just push them in, keep the tires inflated, or some museums put blocks under the tires, put jack stands under them. Yeah, so that's keeping them running. That's and keeping them using it, and that's the fun of it. That's the fun of old cars, is driving it. The cars that are part of this collection were not purchased as investment vehicles. They were not cars purchased with the idea that they were going to go up a percentage in value in time. And I know a lot of people purchase cars because, oh, it's an investment and I hope it goes up. And there are some. There are a few around here. But most of the cars around here were purchased, again, just to be used, just to be enjoyed. And so the increasing in value is not a big thing, and the cars that people would want from this museum, the auction, as they walk around and look at the offerings, would be look at a car and say, you know what, that reminds me of. That's sentimentality. I remember when I saw that. It brings out a certain feeling of nostalgia in me, and I want that one. That's what these cars are. That's what these cars are. Again, they're not valuable cars. We have a 56 Plymouth two-door hardtop here. It's a Belvedere two-door hardtop, really nice red and white car. It's not a Fury. It's not a Fury with the dual carbs. It's not the rare one, but you know what? It's a good, honest 56 Plymouth, the way they were, the way most people had them. The 56 Plymouth Fury is a rare car when it was new, valuable today. The 56 Plymouth here that's being offered, not a strikingly valuable car, but then it also, if it's not so incredibly valuable, it's also affordable for an enthusiast who wants to get it and enjoy it. And that's something that sometimes falls out at auctions. I'm a car person and I'd like to get an old car, but I don't know which one. Well, I go to those auctions, I turn them on TV, and they're $50,000, $100,000, $10,000, $1,000, millions of dollars. I could never afford it. But the cars here, you look at it, they're not going to go for $1 million. Instead, they're going to go for something less, but still nice cars that you can drive and enjoy. Yeah, and appreciation, well, if you're going to drive and enjoy cars, then you got to balance out keeping them nice as you use it, and you use it. Jay Leno talks about that with his Duesenbergs, and there's somebody with a unlimited amount of resources fixing it. He says, yeah, you restore it to 100 points, and then you drive it, use it down to 80, and then restore it again. And he's a user. He loves using his cars. And if Jay Leno can do it, that's the other people can do too. Buy one of these cars, and they're not priced out of the world. They're affordable. And then you take it home. You sort it out so that it's a good, reliable driver, whatever little things it needs. And then you continue to use it and drive it, and you fix things as they go along as you continue to use them. Absolutely. Again, it's a market, it's a class of automobiles that isn't talked about too much. Condition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's really nice. The numbers are there. But a 3 car is a usable car. Well, it's usable. That means you can drive it in and out of the garage. Or could you really drive it several hundred miles? It's really interesting, the mention of the Pebble Beach Tour de Elegance. Back in the early days of Pebble Beach, J.B. Nethercutt and Bill Hara were competitors, good friends, but good competitors. And they would restore their top-line Duesenbergs and CAD 16s and whatnot and bring them to Pebble Beach and compete with each other to see who could win the top prize down there. Okay, they always drove them to Pebble Beach. This is in the 50s and 60s. These 100-point Pebble Beach cars, they said, if I'm going to display it there, I want it to be driven. and they would drive it there. And so Bill Harrah and J.B. Nethercutt had these unlimited resources. They did it, and that's great for them. Most other people, no. They put so much money into the car. They were so perfect. They came by trailers. They drove them or pushed them off the trailer onto the lawn at Pebble Beach, got judged, and hopefully they won a prize. And then Pebble Beach people started saying, wait a minute. These aren't automobiles anymore. They are just static art. They're just a big piece of sculpture. And so they said, well, do these things even run? Well, we don't know. They barely start them for the show, for judging, but who knows if they really run or stop or anything else. So Pebble Beach went back and added, tour de elegance. We want to see them demonstrated on the road, and we'll have that short tour there around the Monterey Peninsula and let people see it, which getting to Pebble Beach is not cheap. It's an expensive ticket, but you can stand on the side of the road and watch the cars come by, which is wonderful. But still, it's not a 100% requirement to participate in Pebble Beach. If you drive on the tour and then you're judged in the show, the car that participated in the tour will get the edge for a tie in the judging process. But Pebble Beach even realizes just a little tiny bit how important the driving is. And yeah, to take these cars back to Indiana and put them on the enthusiast tour and just drive them. That's what cars were made for. None of these were meant to be pushmobiles. None of these were meant to be just static display, a big piece of sculpture. Yeah, they're best when they're going down the road and driving, and the driving museum.